She had $43 in her purse, 10-day-old twins screaming in her arms, a fresh surgical wound still bleeding through her clothes, and a mother-in-law's spit drying on her face. It was 28 degrees outside. Her husband had just shoved her off the porch and locked the door. They thought they had won. They thought she was nothing. They had no idea they had just declared war on a billionaire. For 4 years, Catherine Blake, founder of a $1.8 billion empire, lived as a nobody named Sarah. No jewelry, no drivers, no bodyguards, just a used Honda Civic and a dream that someone, somewhere, could love her for her. Ryan's family gave her torture instead. Hidden cameras, forged evidence, a basement, a locked door, a shove down the stairs while she was pregnant. And when they threw her into the freezing dark at midnight on December 23rd, she didn't beg, she didn't break. She pulled out her phone, and she began to dismantle them, piece by piece. This story is proof that the most dangerous person in the room is the one they decided didn't matter. If that sent chills down your spine, you are not alone. Drop a "she won" in the comments right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And hit subscribe because every story on this channel is about people who were counted out and counted back. Don't miss what happens next.
The front door clicked shut. The sound was final. I left her on the porch at midnight, December 23rd, 2024. Her 2 boys, her 10-day-old secret, cried in her arms. The cold was a biting 28 degrees. She wore those thin hospital pajamas. A stain was growing on them. My mother had spat in her face. It was what she deserved. Her final, deceitful words echoed in the cold air. My own wife, the woman who swore an oath to me. I was the one who forced her out the door. I turned from her. I went back inside. The lock turned with a satisfying click. A second later, the porch light died, leaving her and the boys in darkness. We knew she had only $43 in her purse. The one thing my family did not consider was that her deception ran deeper than we imagined. She owned the house we just threw her from, and all 22 other houses on our street. The company I worked for, and half the valuable land in Greenville, North Carolina. My wife's name was Sarah Blake. She was a 32-year-old billionaire who for 4 years pretended to be poor. This is the story of her ultimate betrayal of me, and the chronicle of how I made her answer for every single lie. If you have been deceived, betrayed by the one meant to love you, or cast aside, you must understand my position to the end, because my reaction to her lies was something she never could have anticipated. Let us go back to the beginning of her great deception. 4 years ago. She called herself Sarah Blake, but her name was Catherine, and she was a Blake of Blake Holdings. At 28, she became a billionaire overnight. She took her parents' small software company and made it public. Her parents, Andrew and Catherine Blake, started a simple business in Boston in 1995. It was a tool for property managers, a modest software for landlords to manage rent and maintenance. In 2017, they died in a private plane crash during a storm. They did not come home. She was 25. She inherited a company with $3 million of debt. It was losing money every month. Everyone told her to liquidate it, to sell it all and walk away, but she refused. It was her parents' legacy. So she worked 100 hours a week. She learned artificial intelligence programming. She rebuilt the entire system from scratch. She called it Blake OS, an AI that could predict repairs, set rent prices, and run entire buildings with no person helping. By 2020, she had contracts in 43 states. In March of that year, her company went public. She was a billionaire at 28. Forbes called her the prop tech princess. Fast Company called her a genius. She had everything, but she felt she had nothing. 6 months before that, she learned a lesson. Her fiancé, Marcus, had a scheme. He would marry her, divorce her, and try to take half of everything she had built. He conspired with his lawyer for months. He created fake documents. He was going to claim he was essential to the company's success. He was nearly successful. She discovered his plan just 3 days before their wedding day. His criminal trial was a public spectacle. The media was a frenzy. Her face was on every gossip magazine. Tech heiress betrayed by scheming. Fiancé. She was on the witness stand for 6 days. He got a 5-year sentence for fraud. For attempted grand theft. But that trial changed her. It taught her to lie. It taught her to distrust. She stopped dating. She decided no one could ever love her for herself. People only saw her money. They only wanted what she could give them. So, in 2021, she made a cold choice. She moved to Greenville, North Carolina, a place where nobody knew her face. She created a false history. She became Sarah Blake, a freelance copywriter. Her parents, she said, died and left her a small insurance policy. $100,000, just enough to buy a small condo. That was the lie she told everyone. Her lawyer, David Harrison, and her assistant, Emma Rodriguez, were the only two who knew her true identity. She had them manage her empire, the board meetings, the investments, her entire life. While she pretended to be a normal person, she wanted to see if someone could love the ordinary Sarah. Sarah, the writer. Sarah with a used Honda Civic. Sarah who clipped coupons and pretended to worry about her electric bill. She wanted to be seen as a person, not as a walking, talking vault of money. I met her, Ryan Mitchell, in September of 2021. It was a charity event for the Greenville Public Library. She was there because she loved libraries. She said they were her refuge as a child. I was there as a weekend volunteer, reading to children. I saw her watching me that afternoon, before we even spoke. I was reading Where the Wild Things Are to a group of 6-year-olds. I did all the monster voices. I made them laugh. I was decent and kind. I never checked my phone. I was completely there. When we finally spoke, she asked me what I did. I told her I was in property management. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills. She said she was a copywriter. I just said, "That's neat." I did not try to show off. I did not boast. I asked her about herself. I actually listened. Coffee followed the event. Dinner followed coffee. Then a movie. And slowly, carefully, I let myself fall in love with her. Of course, she had me investigated. She was never naive. My record was spotless. No criminal past. I paid my taxes. I had no debt but my student loans. My credit was good. I worked at Hudson Property Management. In a perfect, cruel twist, it was owned by one of her holding companies. It was hidden so deep, my own manager did not know who the real owner was. She watched me for 6 months before she let us be a couple. She had to be certain, and I seemed real to her. I always paid for our dates, even when money was tight. I remembered the small things, she said. I was patient when her past made her seem guarded. I never pushed her. After a year together, she almost told me her secret. She said she came close more than a dozen times. I had to do this. For my son. When I saw her on our doorstep, I knew I was right. She was all wrong for him. My Ryan deserved better than a woman who tried too hard. That dress was too fancy for a simple family dinner. The perfume was a tidal wave. I smiled, but my mind was a fortress. "You are Sarah," I said. I let my eyes travel over her. A quick inventory of her flaws. "Ryan has shared so much about you. A mother's lie. He had told us nothing. Inside, my husband Tom knew to stay quiet. He trusted my judgment. Melissa was there with Derek. She understood the mission. She gave the girl a hug, a careful, distant thing. "Your outfit is cute," she whispered. "Did you get it at Target?" The barb was perfect. It landed without a sound. Dinner was my battlefield. The interrogation had to be swift. "So where did you grow up?" I began. "Around Boston? Fancy? And your parents?" They passed away. A flicker of opportunity. "Oh, did they leave you with anything?" Ryan tried to stop me. "Mom, let him be protective." I was the one doing the real work. "It is a perfectly normal question," I insisted. I needed to know what we were dealing with. Her job was next. A freelance copywriter. I laughed. It was barely a real profession. "So you are a work-from-home person. That must be very flexible. It is not really a career, though, is it?" She claimed it paid her bills. How quaint. "Well, that is a good thing," I said, smiling, "because Ryan's paycheck is certainly not going to support a family of 4. A little joke, a little truth. Melissa saw the bracelet then. A beautiful, calculated move. "Is that real silver?" The girl lied, of course. "No, it is just costume jewelry." I knew it. All flash, no substance. "Hmm. It looks so authentic," Melissa cooed. "You have such wonderful taste for someone on a tight budget." The rest of the evening was a masterpiece of subtle pressures. I pressed her on her home, her car, her faith. When she admitted she did not go to church, I could not hide my shock. An audible gasp. "Oh well, Ryan was raised in the church. Our faith is very important to us." He tried to defend her, my sweet, naive boy. "I am just saying," I concluded. "It would be good for her soul." I saw him later, taking her home. He probably thought I was overwhelming. He would call it being protective. I called it being a mother. "They never warm up to you," he would say. No, we never did. The engagement in June of 2023 was a sad little affair. A picnic. His grandmother's ring. It was cheap. I suppose I should have been grateful she was not bleeding him dry yet. The wedding in September was worse. A small gathering. Only 40 people. She paid for everything, claiming she had been saving. A likely story. $8,000 for the venue. A pittance. She was making my son look weak. I found fault in everything. It was my duty. The dress was immodest, the flowers were a waste, the venue was common. "Why not a church?" I asked again and again. "What will people think?" At the reception, I gave my toast. "Welcome to the family, Sarah. I hope you will be a good wife to my son." I paused, looking right at her, "and always remember that family always comes first." She knew I meant my family, not her. The first year of their marriage was quiet. Too quiet. I watched. I waited for the truth to come out. I knew this happy little life was a lie. I was right, of course. They lived in a small rental, 3 bedrooms, about 1,500 square feet. Proof that my son was struggling under her influence. She claimed to be working from home, writing her silly little marketing copy. I knew it was just an excuse to be lazy. She was building nothing. She was a weight, pulling my Ryan down. I thought I could wait her out, that eventually Ryan would see her for what she was. But then she got pregnant. March of 2024. The world tilted. She announced it at home, a positive pregnancy test. Then an ultrasound. The doctor told them everything. Twins. My mind went cold. Not one, but 2. 2 more mouths to feed. 2 more anchors on my son's future. Then came the complication. Placenta previa. High risk. She would need to rest. Be careful. A perfect excuse to do even less. She told my son that evening. I could imagine the scene. Her playing the fragile victim. Him falling for it completely. He was ecstatic. That is what he told me. He spun her around. "Twins," he repeated, like a fool. Then reality hit him. "Wait, can we actually afford this?" A moment of clarity. A moment I had been waiting for. She soothed him, of course. "We will find a way," she lied. Lying was what she did best. She was hiding something. I always knew it. A woman with no past and no family. She was a ghost. 2 weeks later, they told us at Sunday dinner. I had made a pot roast. We waited, then Ryan announced it. "We are pregnant with twins." The silence was my victory. Tom managed a weak smile. Melissa's face was a mask of shock, then forced happiness. I put my fork down, slowly. "Twins?" I asked. My voice was ice. He tried to bubble with excitement, but I cut him off. "How do you plan to afford 2 babies?" I laid out the facts. The mortgage, the daycare costs, $2,000 a month, each. The diapers, the doctor visits. "Have you really thought this through?" She tried to speak. "We will figure it out." I turned my eyes on her. I would not let her ruin my son. It had to be done. Would she work, or would my son carry her forever? Ryan called it unfair. I called it necessary. How is it fair to trap a man with 2 children when you have nothing? The look on her face was of manufactured shock. I saw right through it. I told her what she already knew. The timing was perfect. A marriage less than a year old, then suddenly, twins. She engineered the entire thing. She trapped him. My son stood up, telling me it was enough, but it was not enough. I was the only one brave enough to say the truth aloud. A gold digger, using babies to secure her future. The anger in her eyes was that of a cornered animal. She left. Ryan followed, but he would see. In time, he would understand. I was not being cruel. I was saving him. That night was not the start of a nightmare. It was the beginning of his rescue. 2 weeks later, I arrived with my bags. This house needed a firm hand. She needed supervision. Family helps family. Ryan looked hesitant, but he knew. A mother does not need permission to protect her own son. A mother should not need an invitation to protect her own grandchildren. I moved into their extra bedroom in late April of 2024. The months that followed were not a war. They were an education. I did not need to raise my voice or my hand. True change is quiet. I simply corrected the chaos she had created. Her kitchen was a disaster. I made it efficient. I threw out the junk she was eating. My grandchildren deserved proper nutrition. I cooked meals that would make them strong. Her bedroom was next. The stairs were a clear danger in her condition. I moved her to the guest room. It was a practical solution. My husband and I took the master bedroom. It was only until the babies came I began sorting her mail. She needed help staying organized. I inquired about her finances. A husband should have access to everything, for safety, for emergencies. She finally said no. Her accounts were her own. I saw the ice in her eyes, and she saw it in mine. What was she hiding? She spoke of financial independence. I spoke of trust. A wife should trust her husband completely. Then I started answering her phone. Sarah needed to rest. I told her clients that they could leave a message. Soon they stopped calling. Her little business was not a priority. The babies were the priority. I watched everything she ate. Too much sugar, too much salt. She was always hungry, but her cravings were not healthy. I had to control them for her. Her body was changing too quickly. I pointed it out for her own good. You are gaining so much weight. Your face is getting puffy. It is hard to lose the weight after having twins. At only 17 weeks, she was already letting herself go. But the isolation was the most important part. She needed quiet, not endless chatter from friends. When her friend Emma tried to visit, I sent her away. Sarah is not well. Emma texted her, but I was there. I saw the message. Sarah lied, saying she was fine. She never called her back. I was always there, listening, watching. In the 4th month, June of 2024, Ryan began to see. I saw the doubt in his eyes. He stopped being so affectionate with her. He knew something was wrong. I made sure of it. I would speak to him at night in quiet whispers. I would speak to him late at night. I am just saying, son, it all feels too perfect. She became pregnant so fast. It is not right. She is hiding things. What could she be hiding from you? He would defend her at first. She is not hiding anything. Then why are her bank accounts a secret? What wife does that? Then Melissa returned home. She saw it too. She moved back in with us after her divorce. She came to the house every day. She added her voice to mine. I am just worried about my brother, she would say, loud enough for Sarah to hear. What if those babies are not even his? The question had to be asked. Sarah finally confronted Ryan. Your mother and sister are poisoning you against me. They are just concerned, he told her. Concerned about what? She cried. I have done nothing. Then show me your bank statements, he said. They are mine, she answered. I deserve privacy. But he was finally starting to understand. A marriage should not have secrets. I am not keeping secrets, she claimed. I am keeping boundaries. But he saw the truth. He saw the difference. He grew distant from her. He started working later. They were like strangers. In early July, I knew we needed more. I saw a car across the street. I made sure it was there, often. I made sure she felt watched. I saw a man with a camera near the grocery store. She needed to know she was being watched. She came to me, furious. Did you hire someone to follow me? I did not deny it. I am protecting my son. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. She called me insane. What is insane, I told her, is a wife who hides her money. What is insane is keeping secrets from your own husband. She went straight to Ryan. Your mother hired someone to watch me. He did not defend her. He could not. He simply asked her, did you give her a reason to be suspicious? I was his wife. I was carrying his children. It should not have mattered. He just said, then prove it. Let me see the statements. She refused. He wanted to know why. She just stood there in silence. Her silence was her confession. It was July 28th, 2024. She was 24 weeks pregnant. The day everything almost came out. Her doctor put her on bed rest. Something about her placenta being low. It sounded like an excuse. She said she had to watch for any bleeding or cramping. It sounded like a performance. But I had no sympathy for it. Bed rest. Women from my time worked until the very last day. This was laziness. Later, I brought her a basket full of laundry. Take this upstairs, I said. The dryer is finished. She tried to refuse. I am not supposed to lift heavy things. You are not made of glass, I told her. Stop being so dramatic. Ryan was gone. My husband was in his workshop. But my daughter, Melissa, was there. She sat on the sofa, watching. Sarah picked up the heavy basket. She started up the stairs. I saw the strain on her face. With every step, she struggled. She reached the top. Suddenly, Melissa was right there. Oh, Sarah, she said. I needed to ask you something. Then she pushed her. Just a little shove. The basket fell. Sarah grabbed the railing. She stopped herself from tumbling down 15 stairs. For a moment, she just hung there, frozen. Melissa stood above her. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, she said. Are you all right? You have to be more careful. But I saw my daughter's eyes. They were cold. They were clear. It was done on purpose. She had tried to make her fall. She had tried to expose the truth. I could not speak. It was just an accident, Melissa said with a small smile. You're so clumsy, Sarah. Maybe you should not be carrying heavy things. That night, it happened. The contractions. He rushed her to the hospital. A scare. At only 24 weeks. Too early. They put her on strict bed rest. No stairs, no stress. The perfect trap. When they came home, She told Ryan the most monstrous lie. She said Melissa had pushed her. "She bumped into you, Sarah," he said. That is not the same. She insisted Melissa tried to push her down the stairs. Paranoid, hysterical. I had been listening. I stormed into the room. My daughter would never do such a thing. How dare you accuse her? I saw the truth so clearly. You fell because you were not paying attention. It is time you took responsibility. I looked at my son, daring him to defy me. He looked away. He knew who his family was. Later, I heard her crying in their room. Good. Let her cry. Let her feel the weight of her lies. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I had protected my family. I had won. I went to bed and slept soundly, never knowing she was in that dark room, making a phone call that would change everything. I chose not to see. I chose to be right. It was a sacred Sunday. The house needed purification while they were away. My installers were efficient, placing eyes and ears in every corner. Smoke detectors, picture frames. They were my tools for revealing the truth. From that day on, I watched. I listened. I gathered what was needed to protect my son. By August, she was large with child, a burden she used as an excuse. The doctors coddled her. I knew better. Weakness is a choice. A family requires strength. One day I saw my husband with her in the kitchen. She was on the floor, a place of fitting servitude. Her tears were a performance, her pain a weapon. He was kneeling, succumbing to her act. He looked at her with pity. A fool's emotion. He promised to help her. He promised to speak to Ryan. Hope flickered in her eyes, a foolish, misplaced hope. I knew then that my husband's weakness was a liability. It was a threat I would have to manage. He thought he was being kind. He did not understand he was being played. I would have to make him understand. The future of our family depended on it. This little drama could not be allowed to fester. I corrected my husband's misguided intentions before he could poison my son. An hour later, Ryan went to her room. I heard his voice, strong with the righteous anger I had nurtured. He accused her of turning his own father against me. She denied it, of course. Liars always do. He told her that he knew everything. He knew she was trying to fracture our family. He knew she wanted to drive us from our own home. Her pathetic denials meant nothing against a lifetime of my love and trust. My husband, Tom, had been taught his lesson. He understood where his loyalty must lie. He had told me everything she said, and I simply translated it for Ryan. I showed our son the poison she was trying to inject into our lives. Later, I saw Tom in the hall. He could not look at me. He was ashamed of his weakness. "Why?" she whispered to him. He mumbled an apology. He told her I had reminded him of his vows, of the life we built. I had simply made him choose. Her or us. He chose us. He had to. In that moment, she learned a vital lesson. She was alone. I would make sure of it. The investigator I hired was a constant, silent pressure, a man named Derek Thompson. He watched her every move. He followed her to her appointments, to the store. He was my shadow, cast upon her life. Naturally, he found nothing. She was clever. I knew that. She played the part of a perfect, devoted wife, a perfect prisoner. Her performance was almost flawless. I listened to a call with the investigator. My frustration was growing. "There is nothing," he said. "Absolutely nothing." I told him to look deeper. There is always something. No one is that perfect. No one is that clean. She was hiding her true self behind a mask of innocence. The real Sarah, the one I saw, was a threat, a quiet, patient viper in our home. If the truth would not reveal itself, then I would have to help it along. Melissa, my daughter, understood. She shared my concerns. Ryan needed a reason to open his eyes. He needed to see the monster I saw. So we would give him one. A cold voice inside me spoke a simple truth. We would protect our son. By any means necessary. They were not just planning. I was planning, and I would not fail. She was 32 weeks along, heavy and slow, a ticking clock. She thought staying was the safe choice. She feared looking guilty if she ran. She did not realize the cage was already locked. My Melissa had found the perfect artist, a disgruntled tech specialist named Connor Briggs. He was a man with a grudge and a need for money, an ideal instrument. For $15,000, he would paint the picture we needed. He would create the truth we knew was there all along. This was not a simple deception. It was a masterpiece of fabrication. Connor used her own pictures, her own digital footprint, against her. He created images of her with another man, intimate, undeniable proof of her betrayal. He faked everything: the location data, the messages, the receipts from hotels where she supposedly met her lover. My daughter Melissa even learned to forge her signature. We built a narrative so complete, so detailed, that it was more real than reality itself. It was an expensive, calculated act of love for our son. We were not destroying her. We were saving him. The 15th of September. She was 35 weeks pregnant, a vessel nearing its purpose. She was in pain, exhausted, the perfect time to strike. I walked into her room that evening. My phone was in my hand, a slate of glass holding her condemnation. It was time for a family meeting. I summoned them all: Ryan from his work, Tom from his sanctuary, Melissa from her room. We placed her in a chair, the center of attention, the accused. I showed them my phone. The investigator sent his final report, I announced. And he found something. I showed Ryan the pictures, her face, on another woman's body, in a hotel room with a stranger. The shock on her face was exquisite. "Those are not real," she stammered. "Fake." Then Melissa presented her yet part of the illusion. The dating profiles, the explicit messages, all using her name, her face. She denied it all, of course. Ryan held the final piece. The location data, the proof she was at a hotel when she claimed to be at the doctor's. Every lie she told was a thread in the beautiful, terrible web we had woven. There was a witness. I had arranged for that too. A woman who would swear she saw Sarah at the hotel. We had an answer for everything. Our story was a fortress. Her denials were just wind. "Ryan," she pleaded, trying to approach him. He recoiled. "Do not touch me." She claimed the pictures were fake, computer creations. "I have looked," he said, his voice hollow. "I have looked at everything. The evidence is overwhelming." She screamed that we were setting her up, that we were trying to get her out of his life. I spoke calmly. "You sound insane, Sarah. Paranoid. Perhaps it is the pregnancy." "I am not crazy," she insisted. But she was. Crazy to think she could ever win against me. Ryan would not even look at her. He demanded a DNA test after the birth, proof the children were his. "They are your sons," she cried. "Are they?" he asked. His voice was laced with the pure hatred I had so carefully cultivated. In that moment, I knew I had succeeded. I had saved my son. The cost did not matter. I had to protect my son. I saw the look in his eyes. He was completely broken. That woman had done this. I never trusted her. Now we had proof. Perfect, undeniable proof of her betrayal. While she played the victim, we planned. We had to. She was a threat to this family. She called her lawyer, thinking she was clever. I listened to every word. She spoke of divorce, of security, of escape. She was planning to steal my grandchildren, my son's legacy. We arranged our own response. I told my son to make it happen in 24 hours. We would not wait. We watched her pack a small bag. She hid it in her car, a pathetic attempt at secrecy. We knew her plan. We always knew. She would wait for us to leave for church. It was so predictable. I only needed her to believe she was safe, to believe she was in control. On that Sunday morning, we made our preparations. We let her hear the cars start. We let her believe we were gone. I sent my daughter, Melissa, to wait in the hall. My heart was not stopped. It was steady. It was ready. Melissa stood there, calm and collected. She held the bag. The proof of the planned escape. Sarah's face was a mask of shock, a satisfying sight. It was all a performance, a well-rehearsed play. I walked in from the kitchen. Ryan entered from the garage. The trap was complete. "You were trying to run," I said. My voice was even. It was a statement of fact, not an accusation. "You were going to steal those children." "They are my heirs," I thought. "My blood." She claimed they were hers. A meaningless detail. Our lawyer was already on the phone. This would be handled correctly. I took her keys. I took her phone. There would be no more outside contact. She was not going anywhere, not until the children were born, not until the tests confirmed everything. If they were not my sons, she would leave with nothing. The basement was the only logical place. It was secure. It was for her own good. A woman in her state could not be trusted. She was unstable. We were merely protecting the family. The lock clicked. It was the sound of order being restored. She was a problem contained. I had a duty to my family. I would not let her destroy it. Her power was gone. That was her new reality. She thought this was despair. She knew nothing of it. Despair is watching your legacy threatened by an outsider. On September 24th, the screaming began. She claimed it was labor. 3 weeks early. It was far too convenient. More drama. More theatrics to gain sympathy. I had seen this act before. I waited. I listened to her banging on the door. It was an annoyance, a disruption to the peace of my home. Finally, I went down. I stood in the doorway. She was putting on quite a show. I told her to stop the performance. She was not due. She insisted the contractions were close. It was just false labor, a common thing. I told her to go back to sleep. She doubled over, screaming. It was almost believable. For a moment, I watched. Then I closed the door. I locked it. I would not be manipulated. I would not give in to these games. Her screaming continued for a while. It eventually faded into the background. My world was not pain or terror. My world was about protecting my son. Protecting my bloodline. If she was having babies on that floor, they would still be my grandchildren. That is all that mattered. It was around 4 a.m. when the peace was shattered. A sound outside disturbed the quiet order of my home. I knew it was her. I knew she had found a way to cause this trouble. I heard them at the door, their pounding an insult to this house. They were shouting, making a scene for the entire neighborhood. I went to face them. There must be some mistake, I explained calmly. But they would not listen. They spoke of a message, a desperate plea from my basement. Her theatrics knew no bounds. They ran down the stairs, a stampede in my own home. The door crashed open. They found her exactly where I had left her, safe and sound. She was putting on a magnificent show, of course, sobbing for an audience. "It has been a week," she whimpered, a perfect lie to make them pity her. They told her she needed a hospital. They lifted her as if she were a fragile doll. As they carried her up, she looked right at us. Her eyes were not filled with pain. They were filled with triumph. We were all in our pajamas, caught in her calculated ambush. I tried to explain the situation to the officer. "She is unwell," I said. "We were only keeping her from harm." He looked at me with such disdain, as if I were the monster. One of the medics added his judgment. He threatened me with government agencies, with investigations. It was all so preposterous. I saw the color drain from my son's face. He was the true victim here, The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and noise. My son arrived, smelling of whiskey. He needed something to calm the storm she had created inside him. The nurse judged him, too. He looked at the girl, his eyes finally clear of affection. He demanded the test that would prove everything. She screamed another performance to gain sympathy. He asked if she wanted him to leave. "Yes," she cried. "Get out." He did as she asked. He was free of her for a moment. Then, in the early morning, the babies arrived. 2 pieces of evidence in a war she had started. I waited for the results that would finally end it all. I knew I had to protect my family. I had to protect my son from the consequences of his mistake. That was my promise. That was my duty. The nurse asked her who to call. "My husband was here," she whispered, playing the victim. "He left." The nurse's eyes filled with pity, a poison meant for me. I wondered if she would call her little friend, but all her things were still at my house. She was truly alone now, just her and the boys. In that room, she was isolated, no flowers, no celebration, only the stark reality of what she had done. It was perfect. I visited on the second day. It was a necessary task. I saw them in their little boxes. They had my family's nose. An unfortunate coincidence. But that proved nothing. The test would reveal the truth. I did not hold them. I did not ask their names. I did not congratulate her. I was not there to celebrate a lie. My daughter Melissa sent a text. It was a small act of solidarity. My son visited on the 3rd day. He was sober. He stood at a distance, observing his alleged sons. He asked for their names, Logan and Lucas. He repeated them quietly. He was being smart. He was keeping his distance. "We will do the test when you are home," he told her. He explained he could not form a bond, not until he knew the truth. They might not be his. He was finally seeing clearly. He left. A woman from the hospital came to talk to her, a social worker. She asked if the girl felt safe in my home. I held my breath. I wanted her to lie. A lie would prove her deceit. To tell the truth would be to admit defeat. And she did lie. "Yes, I am safe," she said. "It is just family issues." The woman knew she was not being honest. I could see it, but she had no proof. She gave the girl a card, a useless gesture. When the woman left, the silence in the room was my victory. On the 4th day, the hospital sent her away. She called my home. "I am ready," she announced. "We are busy," I told her. "You will have to find your own way." She mentioned the surgery. She mentioned the 2 babies. "A taxi is possible," I said. Then I ended the call. She needed to learn independence. The driver helped her with the car seats. She sat in the back with the 2 boys, still in pain, still struggling. The house was dark when she arrived, a proper welcome for someone who did not belong. The driver looked concerned. I watched from the window as he helped her to the porch. She paid him with her last few dollars. Then she opened the door to a home that was not hers. She walked into a house of silence. Nothing was ready for her. The cribs were still in their boxes. There was no warm welcome, just the quiet judgment of my house. She put the babies on the floor. It was a pitiful sight. Then she started building the cribs herself. A major operation, she had said. Her stitches pulled. She felt faint. It took her 3 hours. I listened to her weep the entire time. That night, the babies cried every 90 minutes. She struggled to feed them. She was exhausted, alone, in pain. It was a good start. At 6 in the morning, I entered her room. "Your noise is disturbing the house." "Just your house," I told her. "The babies are crying," she replied. "They are hungry." "Then you must solve it," I said. "And when you are done, the kitchen must be cleaned. There is laundry to be done. The living room is a mess." She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. I just had surgery, she protested. Women of my time were stronger, I informed her. You must stop being so lazy. I turned and left her there. She finally understood. She was not a guest here. She was expected to earn her keep. The babies, the house, the family, it was all her responsibility now. She had no choice. She did as she was told. The following days were a test. She made breakfast for everyone while holding a screaming infant. Her wound was a fiery line of her own weakness. On the third day, I slammed her door. The babies woke up crying. When she looked at me, I smiled. I did not realize they were sleeping, I said. On the fourth day, she pumped milk. It took her 30 minutes. My daughter Melissa walked in, took the bottles, and poured them down the sink. My hand slipped, she said. She just watched the milk spill. A whole hour of effort, wasted. I had to teach her resilience. You will simply have to do it again, I told her. Or buy formula. With money you do not have. I left her there with her failure. It was for her own good. 5 days later, no diapers, my son Ryan forgot them. A man has important things on his mind. She used old rags. A lesson in resourcefulness, I thought. On the 6th day, she complained about her stitches, redness, fluid. It was a cry for attention. You are fine, I said. Stop the theatrics. The 7th day brought hallucinations. She was weak. Sleep deprivation is a part of motherhood. She shattered a bottle and just stood there, useless. Clean that up, Ryan ordered. He was learning. He saw her for what she was. A mess. I looked at this girl my son had married. I felt a cold, hard certainty. She was not strong enough for this family. On the 8th day, October 7th, at 3 in the morning, she was in the basement. We needed our sleep. The noise had to be contained. She fumbled with one baby while the other screamed. Her fever was an excuse. 103 degrees, she claimed. She shivered and swayed. A poor actress. 2 crying babies. I knew she had not eaten. A mother sacrifices. She was failing every test. She needed to learn that comfort is earned. My eyes went to the water heater. I had checked it myself. A sturdy, reliable unit. The thought must have entered her weak mind. 10 seconds. A simple valve? A way out. I could almost feel her temptation. To just lie down, to surrender with her children. It would be an end to the noise, an end to her constant complaining. Logan wailed. Lucas wailed. She wept. The sound was grating. Everything was a symphony of her failure. I imagined her hand reaching for the valve. Then, a shift. Logan stopped crying. He looked at her. Some foolish maternal instinct flickered. No, she whispered. A new resolve. It was irritating. Mama is going to fight. She began pounding on the basement door. A desperate, animal noise. 20 minutes of chaos. Her hands were raw when Melissa finally opened it. What is your problem? My daughter asked. Then she saw the state of her. The fever. The blood. Even Melissa looked startled for a moment. A hospital, she gasped. I think I am dying. I went to her. I called 911. Of course I did. I told the operator the truth. My daughter-in-law is being overly dramatic. But perhaps you should check. For the babies. One must always think of the children. She returned from the hospital. Again, the doctors were apparently livid. An infection. Sepsis. You could have lost your life? They told her. How dramatic. Where is your follow-up care? Who is supporting you? She mumbled excuses. Too busy. I knew she would not dare tell them the truth. The social worker reappeared. Signs of neglect, she said. Is someone hurting you? I held my breath. But she lied. She protected us. I have not been taking proper care of myself. The girl was a fool, but she was a loyal fool. They put her on their medicines, patched up her wound, and sent her home, back to the basement, back to her lessons. She had only 2 days left, 2 days to finally understand her place. The abuse, she would call it. I called it education. On October 8th, the 9th day, Connor Briggs delivered the final piece, the truth we needed. It was proof. The perfect, undeniable proof of her deception. It was a masterpiece. Deepfakes, altered screenshots, everything we suspected, now made real. Fake GPS records, forged receipts. The best part was the video call, a perfect deepfake. It showed her in an explicit call with a man. It was utterly believable. The technology was a gift. That night, I showed it to Ryan. It was my duty as his mother. I watched his face, white, red, then a perfect, cold calm. "I want her out of this house tonight," he said. His voice was steel. I felt a surge of pride. "Tonight?" I asked, feigning surprise. "I want her out of my house immediately," he repeated. "Her and those children that are not mine." "It is very late," I cautioned. "I do not care. I want her gone." Melissa texted the witness, Ashley. The girl confirmed everything. She had seen Sarah at hotels. The trap was set. The case was flawless. A perfect construction. Ryan believed it, or maybe he just wanted to. It was easier than admitting his own mother was saving him from a terrible mistake. I heard them stirring in the basement. It was time to purge our home. The basement door flew open. We stood there together, a family united. Ryan, Melissa, Tom, and me. We stared down at her. Her face was full of fear. She knew. Melissa spoke first. She held the phone like a sword. "We know everything, Sarah." She played the video. I watched Sarah's face crumble. The deepfake of her, touching herself, saying those filthy things. "That is not me," she stammered. "A fake. AI. Generated." "Liar," I screamed the word. The truth felt so good. "We have witnesses. We have all the evidence. You were cheating on my son." Melissa pointed at the infants. "Those babies are not even Mitchell's. You brought bastards into this family. Ryan was a statue. Cold. Perfect. I want a DNA test." "Please," she begged. "Look closely. They are deep fakes. Somebody is trying to frame me." "A grand conspiracy?" I laughed. As if she were that important. "Or maybe," I said, "just maybe, you are a cheater and a liar. You are what you are." "Tom, always the coward," suggested waiting. "No," Ryan said. His voice was law. "I want her out tonight." She clutched the baby tighter, shielding the other one. "It is the middle of the night," she pleaded. "They are newborns. Your newborns. Please." Her begging was pathetic. Melissa had an idea. "Perhaps we should keep them. Test them. If they are Mitchell's, they belong here. But she needs to go." I saw the terror in Sarah's eyes. The fear of losing them. "No," she said. She grabbed the other baby. Now she held them both. A pathetic shield. "You will not touch them." My rage boiled over. "They are nothing," I snarled. "They are the bastards you had while you were whoring around. Get out!" I lunged. I needed to rip the contamination from her arms. She spun away, her body protecting them. My hand struck her face, a clean, satisfying slap. The sound echoed. Ryan pulled me back. "Mother, do not." But it was done. A necessary strike. Tom opened the front door. The cold December air rushed in. It felt like a cleansing. The air was cold. It was cleansing. "Get out," my son said. The words were a relief. I looked at that woman one final time. She was no longer my son's wife. She was just an obstacle removed. She pleaded about the cold. She pleaded about the babies, 10 days old. It did not matter. She pleaded for a test, as if the truth was not already plain. I saw my son hesitate. A flicker of weakness. I leaned in and spoke. I reminded him of his duty. I reminded him of the betrayal. His face hardened. That is my boy. He put his hands on her and pushed. It was a gentle shove, a necessary removal. She stumbled back. The babies started to cry. Good. Let them feel the cold. Let them know their mother was unfit. He pushed her again, harder this time. She was on the porch. The wind was sharp. I stood behind my son, a wall of strength. I looked her in the eyes. I had to make her understand. I spat. It was a final declaration. You are nothing, I told her. You are trash. The door slammed. A beautiful, final sound. The locks turned. The light went out. We stood inside, in the wafpans, in the warmth. The problem was gone. The house was clean again. I felt nothing but peace. It had to be done. The screaming was just noise, a tool she used to get her way. I felt nothing but a cold, hard certainty in my chest. My feet were planted firmly. My family stood behind me. This was the only way. The incision she complained about, the pain, it was all part of her performance. I was sure she would not die. My sons would not die. This was not an end. It was a correction, a necessary lesson. Then her crying stopped. A switch flipped inside her. I watched her from the window as the lights in our house went out. My family was safe now, protected from her games. I had done the right thing. It was not fear I felt. It was not despair. It was control, a pure, focused sense of order restored. She would call someone soon. She always did. I moved away from the window. I had to be strong for my boys, for my family. I promised myself they would understand one day, that I did this for them. I put both my sons first. She had to learn her place. She had to learn that she could not break us. We were a family before she came. We would be a family long after she was gone. I had to protect them, all, from her. And just like that, her rescue arrived. Headlights cut through the dark. A black Range Rover. Of course, she had powerful friends. My mother stood beside me at the window. See? A performance, she whispered. All of it. I watched them wrap her in a blanket. It was all so dramatic, so planned. She glanced back at the house one last time. For a second, I thought she looked right at me. There was no sadness in her eyes. There was something else, something cold and unfamiliar. A small smile touched her lips. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a new purpose, a new enemy. I let the curtain fall. I felt nothing. She was gone. The chaos was gone. The house felt quiet. It felt ours again. My mother placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, she said. I did the right thing. I had taken back my home. I had saved my family from her influence. I had won. Now we could finally begin to heal. The storm had passed. She was really gone. The next morning, the house was silent. A peaceful quiet I had not heard in months. This was what I wanted. A life where I was the one in charge. A life where my sons would learn my values, not hers. I pushed away the image of them in the cold. She was their mother. She would not let them suffer. It was all a test, a bluff. I had called it. And I was right. I thought about the future, about getting my finances in order without her constant judgment. I would prove to her, to everyone, that I was a good father, a capable man. I did not need her. I did not need her money or her connections. I was Ryan Mitchell. I was the head of this household. That night, she had lost her power over me. Forever, I was finally free to be the man I was always meant to be, the man my family needed me to be. I had made the right choice for all of us. I was certain of it. That evening, my whole family was there. My mother, my sister, my brother. We ate dinner together in peace. It feels like our home again, Melissa said, and she was right. She was trying to isolate you, Ryan, my mother said, to turn you against your own blood. Her words made perfect sense. It explained everything. Her secrecy, her strange moods, her disapproval of my family. We were united now, stronger than ever. We talked about our problems openly: Tom's business, Melissa's boutique, my own gambling debts. But we were not worried. We had each other. We would face it all together, as a family should. We did not need her. We were better off without her. Looking at their faces, I knew I had made the ultimate sacrifice for them. I had saved them. I had saved us all. My heart felt full. I had done my duty as a son, a brother, and a father. Their entire lives were built on my choices now, and I had chosen them. I chose my family. Patricia was a name I did not know, a lawyer I had never heard of, but I imagined Sarah speaking to someone like her, twisting the story, playing the victim: James, the corporate attorney; Angela, the public relations specialist. These were her people, her world. A world of power and manipulation. A world she had tried to hide from me. I had seen glimpses of it, but I had refused to believe it. Now I knew the truth. She was not the simple woman I married. She was something else, something dangerous. I had to get her out, for my own safety, for my family's safety. I wanted her to be humbled. I wanted her to feel what it was like to lose control, to have everything taken away, just like she had tried to do to me. I wanted her to know that she had lost, that my family was stronger than she ever was. Patricia could plan all she wanted. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve, a day for family. I fell asleep feeling victorious. The phone rang at 6 in the morning. My boss. He wanted me at the office. Now I arrived at 7 o'clock. His face was a stone mask. Hudson Property Management was acquired by Blake Holdings, he said flatly. Your employment is terminated. He slid a file toward me. Violation of ethical conduct. He said there was a recording of me asking my wife to leave. Blake Holdings. The name meant nothing to me. Your severance package will be $0, he continued. Security walked me out. At 7:30 on Christmas Eve morning, I was jobless. In my car, an envelope sat on the windshield, divorce papers, and a note: the babies are mine. Attached was a DNA test, a 99.9% probability. My sons. The world tilted. I threw up in my car. At 8 in the morning, our doorbell rang. My mother answered it. A certified letter. A notice of eviction from a charity I had never heard of. My mother's eviction was a mistake, a bureaucratic error. I had cleansed my home, protected my family. We were finally safe, so when she called, voice tight with panic, I assured her it would be sorted. 72 hours was just a formality. But then she mentioned the new owner, Blake Properties. The name meant nothing, just a faceless company. Then the police came for her. Embezzlement, fraud. I watched them put my mother in a car, her face a mask of confusion. My own shock was a cold stone in my gut. On Christmas Eve, her bail was set at $100,000. An impossible sum. Melissa called next, her voice cracking. Her boutique was condemned. Multiple violations, the city said. The owner was Blake Commercial Properties. Then she found the lawsuit. Catherine Sarah Blake, seeking $2.5 million. It included pictures, bank statements, text messages between her and that snake, Connor Briggs. It was all a lie. The evidence was a lie. It had to be. Then my own phone rang. My best clients were leaving. All of them. My bank followed. The loan was due. Immediately. It had been bought by Blake Financial Services. In a few hours, my world had been dismantled. My income was gone. My debt was a mountain. I called my father. Someone is doing this. Someone is ruining us. His voice was hollow. I know who. It is Sarah. My Sarah? The quiet copywriter I married? Impossible. Dad, I do not think she was ever a copywriter, I said. I do not think we knew her at all. We met in the living room, the same room where we saved our family from her. My mother was in jail. The air was thick with fear. Who is Blake? My father asked. Melissa looked at me, her eyes wide with a terrible thought. She whispered it. Sarah's last name. It is Blake. The silence was absolute. No, I said. That cannot be. She is nobody. Did you ever see her bank account? My father asked. Did you ever really know her at all? My stomach twisted. What if we were wrong? Melissa searched her phone. Catherine Blake, CEO. The results filled the screen. Forbes, business journals. And there she was, my Sarah, in tailored suits. She stood before skyscrapers. She accepted awards on stages. PropTech Princess, Billionaire CEO of Blake Holdings, valued at $1.8 billion. The youngest self-made female billionaire. Melissa's phone hit the floor. This is not real. I grabbed it and stared. I saw my wife, the billionaire wife I threw into the street, the woman I had called trash. It was all there. Every article, every photograph, it proved everything. We had tormented a giant. We had kicked a queen and her heirs, my sons, out into the freezing dark. We did it because we thought she was nothing. My father spoke what we all felt. We are finished. We are completely finished. I looked at the picture on the screen. It was Catherine, confident, powerful, in absolute control. I had tried to break her. Instead, I had forged her into the weapon that would destroy me. And I knew she was just getting started. On December 26th, the news broke. Catherine Blake, CEO of Blake Holdings, would hold a press conference. Every news channel was talking about it. The whole world was waiting. They did not know what it was about. I did. It was about me. It was my execution. The event was at the Charlotte Convention Center. 2,000 seats. Every one of them was full. I imagined her in a hotel suite, preparing, people helping her, dressing her in armor made of expensive fabric, her hair and makeup perfect. She would look like a goddess of vengeance. My children would be nearby, safe, protected from the man who was supposed to be their father. I remembered her asking me to believe her. I remembered turning my back. The videos would be emotional, the news anchor said. People are going to cry. The story is going to be everywhere. Good, I thought, with a strange sense of calm. I want it to be everywhere. I want them all to see what I did. I watched her walk onto the stage. The room went silent. The cameras flashed like 1,000 tiny lightning strikes. She looked into the cameras. She looked directly at me. My name is Catherine Sarah Blake, she said. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Blake Holdings, a company valued at $1.8 billion. I am 32 years old. I am also the woman you have seen in those videos, she continued. The videos of me being thrown from my home at midnight with my 10-day-old twin sons in 28-degree weather. While I was bleeding, the room was chaos. Reporters were shouting. She raised a hand for silence, and she got it. I met a man named Ryan Mitchell 4 years ago, she said. And then she told them everything. She told them about hiding her life. She told them about the cruelty. She told them about the basement. She told them about the birth of our sons. And as she spoke, the screens behind her showed the truth. The hidden cameras, the audio recordings. They watched my mother pour the milk down the drain. They watched my sister shove a pregnant woman. They watched me. They saw me plan her downfall with fake proof. They heard me call her names. They saw me push her into the cold. The room was full of tears and rage. They threw me out, she said, because they believed a lie. They refused to listen to me. But now, the whole world was listening to her instead. It had to be done. We were protecting our family from a web of deceit. A home must be built on truth. She brought only shadows and secrets. That woman, my son's wife, was a stranger to us. A liar. We had to cut out the infection before it poisoned everything. It was an act of preservation, an act of love for my son. I saw the silent agreement in their eyes. They knew I was right. Ryan knew. My husband knew. Even Melissa saw the danger. We were a united front against the falsehood she represented. Her lies about her past were small at first, then they grew. The story of her affair was just the final proof. It was a mercy, really. We were freeing our son. We were cleansing our home. I felt a righteous calm as we made the decision. We were saving ourselves. We were doing the right thing. This was not cruelty. It was a necessary amputation. She and her sons, tainted by her deception, had to go. They were a threat to the foundation of our lives. We simply removed them. Then came the performance. I watched the broadcast from a dark room. The world saw a victim. I saw a master manipulator. She twisted our protection into abuse. She painted our righteousness as a crime. The crowd roared for her. They were fools, sheep applauding a wolf. She spoke of a $5 million donation. The money she hid, the money that proved her entire life with us, was a lie. She claimed it was for abused mothers. The irony was a bitter poison. She was the abuser. She abused our trust. She abused my son's love. I did not hear a survivor. I heard a liar spinning her greatest lie yet. She spoke of justice. There is no justice in a world that believes a snake over a mother protecting her young. This was not a confession. It was an execution. Our execution. And the world cheered for it. She had planned this all along. She wanted to destroy us from the very beginning. She never loved my son. She only wanted an audience for her final, devastating act. The world turned on us instantly. They called us monsters. Me, a monster for trying to keep my family safe. My phone became a vessel of pure hatred. They did not understand. They saw a rich woman and felt pity. They did not see the poison she had injected into our lives for years. Ryan could not even buy food. They screamed at him in the streets, accused him of abandoning his children. They did not know he was escaping a fraud. My own words on social media were twisted. I said she deceived us, and it was true. They replied that we failed her test. Life is not a test. It is about truth. Those children were part of her lie. Throwing them all out was a statement. We reject falsehood. We choose truth, but in their eyes, we were evil. We became symbols of everything they hated. She, of course, became a saint, a hero. Her stock climbed. Of course it did. The world loves a good story. And she told them a masterpiece of fiction. It was a matter of justice. They called it child endangerment. I called it protecting my family. The charges were just words: false imprisonment, assault, fraud, absurdities spun by a girl who sought to ruin us. My son Tom was a coward. He broke under pressure. He told them lies to save himself, testifying against his own blood. The trials were a farce, a performance for the public. The evidence was twisted. My words, meant to expose a liar, were played as a scheme. A moment of justified anger, spitting at her defiance, was called an assault. The doctor was a hired mouthpiece. The fire marshal exaggerated everything. They had an answer for every good deed I had done. 1 hour. That is all it took them to destroy my life. Guilty. The judge's voice was poison. 23 years on the bench, and this was the worst he had seen. He called me horrendous. He said I targeted a vulnerable mother. I was trying to save my son. I showed no remorse because I had done nothing wrong. The sentence was 12 years. I screamed the truth. That woman is a liar. She deserved everything that happened to her. The judge simply said my son needed protection from me. He was wrong. I was his only protector. Melissa's trial was another spectacle. She was a casualty of this war. They brought in some expert to talk about fabricated images. Connor Briggs, a weak man, sold his story for immunity. He claimed she paid him $15,000. He said she wanted the images to look authentic. Of course she did. We needed to show people the truth about that woman. The text messages proved nothing. Make her look bad? Yes. The world needed to see the monster she was. These will be very convincing. Good. Perfect. I want her gone. We all did. The verdict was inevitable. Guilty. 6 years and a $25,000 fine for trying to protect our family. For Ryan, my poor boy, they argued he was under my influence, as if a mother's love is a crime. The prosecutor just played a video. Ryan, my son, simply removing a threat from his home. His face was not cold. It was determined. Then she took the stand. A perfect actress. She described that night, painting herself as a victim. 10 days postpartum. Bleeding. Holding newborns in the cold. All for show. He shoved me. He locked the door. She claimed he questioned if the babies were his. Any sane man would. She had offered a test, a lie to seem reasonable. He chose to believe me. He chose to protect his children. She looked at him then, feigning betrayal, heartbroken, alone. My son sobbed, not from guilt, but from the pain of her lies, guilty of endangerment, not assault, a small victory. They knew she had pushed him to it. 3 years of probation. They forced him into therapy, supervised visits, $3,000 a month to the woman who destroyed him. The judge called him weak, a coward. He said Ryan chose loyalty to an abuser over his own family. I was not an abuser. I was a mother. I was his shield. And now I hope you spend every day remembering what you threw away. He threw away a viper. Then came the lawsuit. A performance of greed. $2.5 million from me, $1 million from Melissa, $500,000 from Ryan. She donated it all, playing the saint. I do not want their money. A lie. She wanted our ruin. Now I imagine her. In a penthouse I paid for. A garden built with my family's money. My grandchildren, Logan and Lucas, toddling on the grass. Emma, her friend, blowing bubbles. That girl, Sophie, with them. I see her on a bench, jeans and a faded shirt, no makeup, a messy ponytail, a picture of false modesty. Peaceful. She is not peaceful. She is a predator, enjoying her spoils. She tells her friend she is making progress, sleeping better. The nightmares are less frequent. Good. Let her sleep. I never will. I imagine her saying she feels held together with duct tape and stubbornness. That is not strength. That is arrogance. Then one of my grandsons falls. Logan. He cries. She rushes to him, picks him up. You are okay, buddy? She soothes him with lies. He runs back to play, already forgetting. Emma tells her she is an incredible mom. A lie. She is a thief. I am a terrified mom, she claims. Afraid someone will take them. Afraid she will fail them. That is not love. That is paranoia. That is guilt. Then the car appears below. My husband, Tom. He gets out, carrying a bag. She tenses. Good. She should be afraid, but she lets him up. No, come on up. A mistake. He climbs the stairs. The boys run to him. Pop, pop. My name. The name they should be calling for me. He kneels. He gives them toys. Dump trucks. He buys their love with cheap plastic. He sits on the grass making noises. My grandsons giggle. Emma watches him. She does not trust him. She is the only one with any sense. Are you sure about him? Emma asks. He testified. She says it like it was a noble act. He told the truth. He told her version of the truth. He is trying. He is a traitor. The boys deserve a grandparent who is not a monster. She sees me as the monster, but she lets the traitor in. He enabled me for 40 years, Emma says. Yes, he did, because he knew I was right. But he is the only one who showed remorse, she thinks. Remorse is for the guilty. He is the only one changing. He is becoming weak. Like her, she gives him a chance. Tom looks at her. He mouths the words. Thank you. I hope he chokes on them. Her phone buzzes. A text. An unknown number. From my son, Ryan. Please, I know I do not deserve it. Let me explain. Let me apologize. I am begging you. He is weak. He is groveling. I stare at the message in my mind. Emma reads it. Are you going to respond? She asks. No, of course not. Good, Emma says. He wants forgiveness to feel better. She says it is not her job. She says her job is protecting her sons by keeping them from their father, a man who threw them into the cold. Her words, not the truth. What if he has changed? Her own doubt. Let him prove it, she decides, by respecting her boundaries, by paying her, by showing up sober, by doing the work without her. She deletes the message. She feels nothing for him. She calls that freedom. I call it cruelty. They sit in silence, watching my grandchildren. Her company is now worth $2.2 billion. She has been on magazine covers. The foundation she funded with my money now operates in 8 states. It has helped thousands, all built on my family's destruction. She mentors people. She gives talks. She tells her story, her lies. She is dating. My son, Ryan, works at a car wash for $15 an hour. He lives in a studio apartment. He sees his sons once a month. At these visits, they cry. They do not know him. They call him that man. At every visit, my son cries. He is in therapy. He sent her a 12-page letter. Apologies, explanations, begging. She never wrote back. He framed a photograph, her holding the twins, before she destroyed us, before he was forced to save them. He looks at it every night, a reminder of the family she stole. He will never work again. His name is ruined. He is completely alone, and it is all her fault. Now I live in this gray box. I am serving 12 years. My world is laundry and the scent of bleach. 12 cents an hour for a life that was stolen from me. Tom divorced me. Ryan tried to visit once. I could not bear to see the weakness in his eyes, the weakness she preyed on. Melissa is in another cage, just like me. She wrote to me, apologizing. I burned the letter. Apologies are for the guilty. My only crime was loving my son too much. That woman, she gets to keep my grandchildren. Tom sees them. He tells me they are beautiful. He weeps. He testified against me. His remorse is just another betrayal. He thinks he is setting things right. He is a fool. He chose her side in the end. He chose the lie. I do not want forgiveness from him. I do not want anything from a man who watched a viper devour his family and then helped her digest. I will never know my grandsons. That is my true sentence. She allows Tom to see them. Another calculated cruelty. A way to show she has all the power. I imagine him playing with them, calling him Pop Pop. A title he does not deserve. A title that should have been mine. It is a torment she designed just for me. He accepts her terms. He grovels for scraps of time with them. He thinks he is lucky. He does not see that he is just another one of her pawns. He is a reminder of her total victory. The sun sets on her perfect life, her boys, her fortune, her story. And I am here, in the dark, alone. She did not just take my freedom. She took my name. She took my future. She took the 2 little boys who carry my blood. She left me with nothing but these 4 walls and the burning truth of her deception. People call me cruel. They say I am ignorant. They believe I underestimated her. I did not underestimate her. I saw her for exactly what she was from the very first day, a predator in sheep's clothing. My only mistake was believing my family would see it too. They say she rebuilt herself. That is a lie. She only revealed her true form, a monster made of money and vengeance. My life is shattered. My family is gone. My name is a curse. But I do not regret what I did. I regret that I failed. I tried to protect my own. I tried to stand for the truth in my own home. That is not a crime. She speaks of being broken. She knows nothing of being broken. I am what is left when everything is taken. I am the consequence of her lies. I am the one who was left in the cold. And in the silence of the cell, I know one thing. I was right about her. I was right all along. That is the one thing she can never take from me. I see her now sometimes, on the internet. She has her little charity, her little story. She splashes in a bath with the boys. She washes their hair. She sings them songs. It is all a performance for the camera. She posts pictures of their pajamas. Dinosaurs and rockets. She talks about their independence. She talks about their choices. It is all a lie. She reads them that book, the one from the library. She claims it as her own now. She is creating new memories, erasing us. She claims Max was lonely. She twists the story to fit her narrative. One of the boys is asleep. The other is fighting it. She kisses their heads. She turns on a light. She goes to her room and looks at her phone. She scrolls through pictures of the women she has helped. She shows off a number, 2,847 families. She calls her suffering a purpose. She says it transformed into power. It was not suffering. It was a consequence. This power she has now is built on a foundation of lies. She stole my son's children and built an empire. She claims this power transforms lives. It ends cycles. It rescues others. What a hero she is. I see the picture on her nightstand. Her and the boys. She looks tired. She looks happy. She thinks she won. She thinks prison or money was the goal. My victory was securing my family. My victory was saving my son from her. She is not free. She is a thief. She is living a stolen life. I hear the sounds of my own grandchildren. In this house, my son found a proper wife, a woman of good standing. I listen to their peaceful breathing on the monitor. That night on the porch was not her beginning. It was the end of a mistake. She thinks she is a phoenix. She is just a scavenger. I turn off my light. I sleep perfectly well. The nightmares are hers to have, not mine. Tomorrow I will wake up. I will kiss my real grandchildren. I will prepare their breakfast. I will continue to protect my family. I will live my life, my real life, the one I secured, the one she could not take from me. My name is Barbara Blake. I am a matriarch. I am a protector. I am a realist. But more than anything else, I am a mother, and I was right. Sunlight streams into my kitchen. I am at the stove. My son and his wife are here. Their children are in their high chairs, chattering. This is how it was always meant to be. It was a kindness I was showing them, a necessary structure. I watch now from a distance. He speaks a word, and she stops everything. She stares at him like he is a perfect little god. She sees innocence. I see a boy I was trying to make strong. She is making him weak. Yes, my precious boy, Mama is undoing all my hard work. He reaches for her, a gesture of dependence. I love you. The words are a poison. Her tears are not healing. They are a surrender to chaos. I loved you too. I loved it, you enough to build a proper world for you. I see her kiss their heads. They smear their filth into her hair. She does not mind. This is the decay I fought against. Her friend arrives, another architect of this ruin. They stand together, admiring the mess. The undisciplined joy. You survived, she says. She thinks this is survival. I smile. You broke it, I tell her in my mind. You could not handle a world with rules. What comes next, she asks. What mountain will you fail to climb? She looks at them. At this life, she thinks is safe. It is fragile. It is still an illusion. Nothing, she says. There are no more mountains. Only this. She has settled for so little. She has chosen comfort over greatness. It is not enough. It will never be everything. The boys erupt in some foolish noise. She thinks it is joy. I hear only the sound of a future collapsing. Her laugh is hollow. It is the laugh of someone who has forgotten what true strength is. This is her life now, a messy kitchen, a broken family. This is what she calls happiness. I see it for what it is. A beautiful, tragic mistake. If this story angers you, if you see the disorder she calls freedom, if it reminds you that some people must be guided for their own good, then show your support. Leave a comment and tell me you understand what real strength looks like. What would you have done to maintain order? Your principles matter. I need to hear them. If you know someone who indulges weakness, show them this story. Let them see the result. And if you have not already, follow this channel. Learn the truth that I will continue to share. So you never mistake chaos for victory. Remember, they can abandon you, but they cannot erase the standards you set. You know what is right, even when they do not. This message was crafted from a harsh reality, a difficult truth, and an unwavering vision. Every story I tell is meant to reinforce the discipline needed to withstand the easy path of life, and to find strength in structure, not in surrender. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.